And we're back. Welcome back to Facebook Auction Live. This is episode 6. So to my right, I have Amy Lee, JX, and Jose. We're going to start off with you, Amy, because you've been here before. Last year, you answered a lot of relevant questions to our advertisers. And your first question for today is going to be around predictability. Now, naturally, as an advertiser, you want predictable costs, right? What are some things that you could do to ensure that you can have some predictability, even though oftentimes that's really hard to do?
So I think the main thing I'd highlight when it comes to the topic of predictable cost is a bid type that we recently launched called target cost bidding. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this, it's a new bid strategy we launched particularly with direct response advertisers in mind, for whom predictable cost is kind of the key goal, essentially. Historically, our delivery pacing system has been built to optimize for cost efficiency, so always like the best cost possible. But we heard feedback from advertisers like those tuned in today that that's not always the goal. It's not always just about efficiency. Sometimes you just want to know that you can hit a target CPA of $10, no matter how much you spend your budget, or as much as possible as you spend your budget. So target cost bidding basically is a result of us rebuilding our pacing system from the ground up to actually specifically, instead of always going for that kind of lowest hanging fruit, lowest cost fruit first, whereby then you see your average cost rise as you increase your budget. Target cost actually explicitly looks at, for whatever your budget size is, can you consistently hit a target cost at the price that the advertiser specifies. So I'd say that's the main lever for anyone who hasn't already tested that out to kind of go after cost predictability. Target cost bidding. Other things that can help with this are really just to make sure our conversion optimization models have more data to work with so that our predictions are essentially more consistent over time. And some things that can help with that are just to make sure you're not, spreading your overall budget across too many separate ad sets. If doing so can actually lessen the learning ability at the ad set level. Making sure your audiences similarly aren't too small. Make sure there's enough room inside that ad set.
Is there a minimum budget that you should spend?
I wouldn't say there's a minimum budget. What I would say is that our optimization system is able to make the best predictions after about 50 conversions are captured at the ad set level. So you can kind of back out then, depending on what type of conversion you're trying to drive, you can kind of back out what your budget at the ad set level might need to be. So maybe it's whatever your typical conversion cost is times 50. That would be like the budget you'd want to aim for the lifetime of your ad set.
Is 50 a hard number?
It's not a hard number. It's kind of a general threshold that we recommend today. And I'd say that we're always continuing to work on improving our models. So we're looking to get more sensitive over time with how we kind of give that guidance for different types of ads and different types of advertisers.
Okay. Is there any trade-offs for target cost? Like when you're using target cost bidding, is it ultimately going to impact your scale?
Yeah, I guess that is a great question. There's an explicit trade-off actually with target cost bidding. As I mentioned, before we launched target cost bidding, we had this bid strategy in place. It used to be called just max bid or manual bidding. That explicitly went for the lowest cost conversions first with every dollar that you spend on our platform. And so that's great if cost efficiency rather than cost stability is your goal. In order to create the cost stability or increased cost predictability that target cost bidding offers, there's an explicit trade-off on that cost efficiency point. So instead of always trying to grab, with target cost bidding, always trying to grab that lowest hanging fruit, we're trying to grab the fruit that costs about whatever the target cost is the advertiser has given us. And we're trying to do that with the budget that the advertiser supplies us. So with that predictability, that means that you're kind of trading off on some of that lower cost fruit. So that's something to kind of evaluate as an advertiser goes in and considers what bid strategy to use. What's more important to me, cost stability and predictability or cost efficiency?
Understood. And JX, moving on to you. Mm-hmm. So we speak about relevance score all the time, and I know when I'm speaking to a lot of advertisers, they oftentimes experience something where the relevance scores that are really low
Yeah.
are helping them the most. They're driving the most conversions, or they're getting the most out of some of these ads with really low relevance scores. And then you would think the relevance scores that are high would do that. Can you explain that dynamic?
Sure. So the relevance score is a metric that we come up with to summarize the ad's performances in general, how our ad system predicts the action rate to the ads as well as organic interactions to the ad. So it's a summarization metric that we've seen been performing well across the board in general. But from data science perspective, everything is a distribution. So there will always be cases where we can see reverse trend where higher relevance score actually have comparatively lower performance to that specific advertiser. And actually, on the other hand, for specific advertiser, just comparing relevance score from one ad to the other might not really be a very reflective way to see the ad's performance, because different ads could be targeting on different users, and relevance score is summarizing the performance on that specific targeting and by that specific optimization. So if two ads are targeting on different users or optimizing for different goals, then their relevance score could be summarized based on different response rate and different audiences. And thus, you might see one audience having higher relevance score, higher organic interactions driving up relevance score, while the other audience might be having a higher demand on the ad quality and lower organic bid, but that doesn't mean that the ad performance will be lower for that type of audience. So I think relevance score in general could be used as a good reference point to the overall ads performance, but still keeping in mind that when it comes to specific ads, you still need to make sure that the ads are really comparable when you are looking at the specific ads.
Okay, and just to highlight, so relevance score is not actually a variable that's built into the auction?
No, so relevance score is a summarization of output of the auction, but it's not an input to the auction.
Okay, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Jose, so we actually have this conversation all the time. There's a lot of advertisers out there that have tons of really good organic creative. Does that give them any kind of advantages when it comes to sponsored creative?
It's a great question. First off, thanks for having me, Chidi. I've been a long time listener to the show, so I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks for coming.
So there are a lot of great businesses that are constantly pushing out Facebook page posts and seeing really great engagement to them. At this time, that engagement is not directly considered as a feature into how we deliver against those ads. However, more importantly, it's a really great indicator of how those ads could perform in the auction for a given audience. So if you do see that specific Facebook page posts are performing well, you have a really great shot at trying those as your creatives. However, if you don't have a really great signal at which creatives are probably going to perform well in the auction, your best bet is to create an ad set to your intended audience, put those creatives into an ad, and allow us to help you understand which of those ads are going to perform best and allow us to deliver for you.
Okay, and speaking of ad sets, so many advertisers for different reasons oftentimes shut off their ads and then they turn them back on at a later date. And what kind of impact can that have on delivery?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the most immediate impacts that that'll have is by causing the ad to go back into learning phase. So businesses that try to start and pause ads for business reasons, maybe have specific schedules that they want to hit, may see volatile performance from those ads as we, again, try to understand what's the best way to deliver for them. We understand that there's always going to be business considerations that may cause you to need to pause or restart ads on a frequent basis. Our advice is think about really what you're trying to achieve and understand if this is a need or if it's a want, as it could affect the delivery of your ad sets on an ongoing basis.
That's excellent advice.
I would just, to add on to Jose's point there, it kind of ties back to the notion of predictability. Like, as I mentioned, we kind of need a lot of data at the ad set level to be able to make effective optimization decisions, like make informed decisions as to who I show an ad to next to actually get good results. That's what that learning phase essentially captures, is like we are gathering, we're learning data to basically make those decisions. And so it's more or less to be expected that during the learning phase, performance, CPAs, delivery could be a little bit more volatile. After that, approximately 50 ad set conversion threshold, performance starts to stabilize. And so exactly to your point. Unless if it's necessary to pause something, to fix something, et cetera,
Yeah.
go ahead and do it. But wouldn't arbitrarily suggest doing that because it does come at kind of that learning cost.
Okay. And speaking about changes, JX, what constitutes a large budget change, right? Because we talk all the time, like, does a budget change lead to re-entering the learning phase?
Yep.
Is that true? Can you shed some light on that?
Exactly. So especially for auto-bid ads, where our system has a pacing added to that. So when there is a big budget change, our pacing will also change correspondingly because we think larger budget will help you to reach a larger audience, and thus we should place the pace higher if you increase the budget. And when you talk about budget changes, we usually tend to think about percentage of budget changes. So for the same $5 increase, if your original budget is just $5, then that's considered a very big percentage change. While if your original budget is just $100, $5 doesn't probably introduce a lot of variability in the pacing. So when we look at the data, we actually saw that bucketing by different budget sizes, the larger the budget, the less the influence per unit of budget change will introduce to the overall campaign performance. In general, we think when the budget change is more than 50%, then we would consider there's going to be a significant performance change in terms of CPM and users that we will help you to reach.
Just want to add on that. This comes from a need from a lot of businesses to identify which of their ad sets are best performing and then drive budget more towards their good ads. I think a really effective technique at doing that in today's world is actually by leveraging campaign budget optimization, which will help identify which ad sets are performing best and make sure budget goes there.
What is campaign budget optimization?
Might pass this off to Amy, who's a little bit more of an expert on this front.
Yeah, I love talking about campaign budget optimization. Okay, so a relatively new feature, actually a feature that we're still in the process of rolling out right now, that I'm very excited about, and that is campaign budget optimization, appropriately named. So historically, before the launch of this feature on Facebook, you all know that you've had to set your budget at the ad set level. So that means that you've got a lot of creatives targeting different audiences, and as an advertiser, you've been forced to kind of split up your overall campaign budget into $50 here, $100 here, et cetera. Assess the performance across all of those ad sets, and literally, if some ad sets are outperforming others, you're manually reallocating budget potentially from the lower performing ad sets to the higher performing ad sets. And this takes time and energy on your part, and obviously, like if it's a human doing it versus the computer, like it might not be as efficient as it could be. So that's where campaign budget optimization comes in, which is a new ability to essentially set that budget at the campaign level. So at the campaign level, you might have many ad sets underneath it. And then once you opted into campaign budget optimization, you actually give the system the ability to optimize spend across all of those ad sets in the campaign to maximize results at the campaign level. We've seen some really promising results from advertisers who've used this so far, who've tested this out so far, better results overall, as well as just increased workflow efficiency. So we're expecting this to roll out to all advertisers by this summer. Most folks have it now, but for sure, if you see it in the interface, give it a try. If you haven't, we're really excited to hear your feedback on this one.
Okay, that's great. What happens if you have multiple ad sets? The ad set that was performing really well actually starts to cool off. Does campaign budget optimization automatically start spending to the other ad sets at that point?
Yeah, we're always looking for kind of the best potential performing ad sets under that campaign. So we'd respond to that behavior and continue to optimize spend accordingly.
Awesome. So Jose, I'm going to come back to you, but before I go to you, just want to remind all our users out there, please continue to ask those really good questions that are coming in. I have an iPad right here, and I'm seeing everything that's coming in, so please keep it up. Thanks, guys. So Jose, back to you. We have a situation oftentimes where an advertiser might have tons of ad sets, but the big question is, should I put multiple ads in each ad set, or should I just have one ad per ad set and have multiple ad sets? Can you speak a little to that dynamic?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chidi. Thanks. I'd say that your best bet is to take the creative that you have a high indication that will perform and be relevant to a given audience. I'll take a step back and say we actually recommend that you create an ad set for each audience that you seek to reach. And within that ad set, you should try to put it in the creative that you think has the highest signal for and highest relevancy. And from there, we'll help you understand which of those will be the best performing. If you have an indication that one of them is an optimal performer based off how it performs with a Facebook page post, it doesn't hurt to put that one in there with a couple of other creatives. Since you already have this other signal that it'll perform well with organic engagement from your Facebook page post, it'll probably deliver there, but you might find that other ads may also get great delivery and help improve your overall conversion rates.
Okay. And staying with you, Jose, what are some new products or new things that advertisers should be looking forward to in the next, let's say, 6 months?
Absolutely, great question. I work on value optimization, which is something I'm really excited. We are working to continuously roll this product out to an even larger set of businesses. And it's really proven to be a great tool for e-commerce and gaming businesses to help them find the people that are likely to spend more. And to that end, it's really helped improve return on ad spend objectives and help them get a little bit more control of getting efficient delivery on their campaigns. We're really excited about not just what we can do with this product, but extending it out into other value metrics. Thinking and exploring about concepts like lifetime value is really important to us. But in the next 6 months, our focus will be certainly how can we give businesses that are using value optimization more control, as well as how can we roll out value optimization to a larger set of clients. The other non-auction product that I'll kind of plug in right now is value-based lookalikes, which is another way to express to Facebook that you care about people that are valuable to you. And right now we have a product out that allows you to send in a data file. Send in a data file. These are hard questions. Sometimes hard questions just get this a little bit more dry. Absolutely. I do get choked up sometimes. These are my babies. But value-based lookalikes is a great way of telling our system who are the people most valuable to your business and helps the Facebook engine find people likely to look like those valuable customers.
Okay, so if you have audiences with higher LTVs, this is like the perfect product for you.
That's a great way of using it, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess like a use case on the value-based lookalikes front is maybe you're a financial services advertiser, and ultimately, your business goal is to drive this outcome that you can't optimize for directly on Facebook yet. Maybe it's some sort of qualified leads or actual, like, I don't know, opening a new savings account or something like that. Like you can't tag it with the Facebook pixel yet. The way value-based lookalikes can kind of improve results that you've been getting to date is that you can actually, so before we launched value-based lookalikes, we had lookalikes, which is you could, send us a customer, a hashed customer data file and basically say this is my list of valuable customers, go find people who look like this list. But basically that data file, the way our system interprets it is that everyone on that customer list is the same, equally valuable. But you might know that, based on your actual knowledge of your customers, that some of those customers are more valuable than others. With the value-based lookalikes, you actually have a way to signal that differentiation in value across those customers. So if some customers are more valuable than others, you can actually indicate that in the data file. And then when our system is looking to build lookalikes based on that list, we can actually take that additional value signal into account and index more on finding people who you've identified as being more valuable.
Okay. And oftentimes when you have really valuable audiences, there's not that large of an audience, right? So you mentioned earlier that guidance is now 50 conversions per ad set per week, which is guidance. You mentioned that it's not a hard number. But even with that being said, what happens if an advertiser is only getting 5 conversions or 10 conversions? Like, is there something wrong there?
No, I mean, if that's what the advertiser, if that's what someone's seeing on their ad set, that's great. I would say that it does influence our system's ability to effectively find more of those conversions at the ad set level. So a couple of things to kind of act on based on that knowledge. Like if you do want better optimized performance, what do you do? One consideration could be you actually group together the budget that if you, for example, split your entire budget pool across many separate ad sets and you've got a few conversions on each of these ad sets, you might consider actually combining those budget pools under one ad set so that you're able to capture more conversions under that single ad set. maybe you don't actually have, maybe you only have one ad set running and it's got
Yeah.
5 conversions a week. What do you do? One thing you could do is consider optimizing for so if you do have only 5 conversions a week on an ad set, you might see as a result like more volatile delivery, not very well optimized delivery, ultimately like a slowdown in delivery. So what do? You could consider optimizing for a higher funnel event on the pixel, for example. So maybe what you've tagged as a purchase event doesn't happen very much.
Yeah.
You might look at tagging something more upstream as an add to cart event, for example. Happens more often. We can, for the same budget, capture more of those conversions on that ad set. We've found that even optimizing for that higher funnel event, that can still effectively drive lower funnel conversions and kind of lead to more consistent delivery over time when using that tactic.
Absolutely. The name of the game is helping our systems learn as much as possible, and if those upper funnel objectives like add to carts or view contents is what gets data in our system, it can have great impact on your lower funnel objectives as well. So something to keep in mind if you're struggling with that.
And just to add in, like Jose just mentioned, value optimization and value-based lookalike, both aiming to help advertiser to find more valuable user. So in the case that there is less purchase event, less density of purchase event in a short period of time, and maybe advertiser might feel that some of the events that they have available might be too mid-funnel or up-funnel, they can actually use value-based lookalike by looking at a longer period of time in the past where they could have more volume of purchases and find a user from the targeting side that they think will have larger potential of converting with higher value. And then in the optimization side, they will optimize for a mid-funnel event. So both optimization and targeting are ways that our system can help advertisers to achieve their business goals. While targeting could have more flexibility to look at larger volume of data over longer period of time. And also they have more flexible way to define what a value is as compared to optimization.
So targeting sounds really important, but how does creative relate to that? What role does creative play within our auction?
Right. So I think good creative are more relevant to your audiences, especially if you are a DR advertiser. Then creatives that resonate more with your target audience will have better responses from from users. And thus our system will have this feedback loop kicks in, and then our estimated response rate will also be higher, and thus your ad will likely to see a better performance in our auction.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're always trying to, ultimately, when Jose comes to Facebook, for example, and we're trying to figure out what ad to show him when he's eligible to see an ad in his feed, we're going to consider 2 things. One is the value to the advertiser whose ad we eventually show to Jose, and the second is how much Jose will actually find the ad that we pick to be relevant or useful. And so that however much a creative potentially will resonate with Jose there influences our estimate of the user value, as well as, do we think Jose is going to act on this thing, act on this ad and engage with it? That also influences our estimation of the advertiser value.
I'll just drop a note and further say there's a lot of great formats that also speak to how to make ads more relevant. If you're targeting people that have already visited your website, maybe what you really want to do with your creative is show them other products that are probably going to be your best top of line, most successful products. You might want to show those products to them in a very compelling way. Formats like Carousel and Canvas are really great ways of showing existing customers or people that have visited your business that in a highly compelling way. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, so staying with targeting, broad versus narrow targeting, right? This is a question that a lot of advertisers ask. What are your thoughts around that? Anybody could take this question.
To me, with my experience with advertiser, what I've seen is that a lookalike audience, or 1%, 3% higher ratio lookalike audience, generally we believe it's a higher quality audience that gives the ad a faster jump start. But that being said, when you restrict the delivery to 1% or 3%, that's also a smaller audience, and that's a smaller inventory you could possibly get. So there is a trade-off. If there's a short-term goal, marketing goal, for the person to meet, then running a 1% lookalike helps you to achieve that goal, that volume or that speed faster. While if you are confident that your optimization is aligned with your true business goal, and you can trust Facebook's optimization to learn over the long time by giving us sufficient budget and sufficient time to learn effectively, then maybe it's going to pick up slower than if you were using a 1% lookalike. But we believe that over time, our machine learning model would also still get sufficient knowledge of your conversions and optimize in the long run to achieve on-par performances.
JX has some great data-driven insights there, and they really map to our principles, which is that we're able to deliver great success to businesses when they are able to give us time and a great pool of data to learn from. And so generally what I'd say is if you're running ads optimized for conversions or optimized for value, your best bet is to try to keep the audience as broad as possible. Where your business considerations can come in is if you know there's specific pockets of that audience that you know aren't going to be highly relevant. It may make sense to start off the ad by excluding those audiences from your consideration. But generally, what we find, especially in verticals like gaming, is that they see great success whenever they use one of these techniques, app event optimization or value optimization, with a very broad audience.
Can you speak to app event optimization real quick? Because gaming.
Sure.
In that space, AEO is big.
Yes, absolutely. App event optimization has been a really great solution for a lot of businesses in the mobile app space to find people that are most likely to take a specific action in-app. And it's been widely used across gaming along with broad audiences to lower the conversion rates and get them and help them meet their ultimate marketing goal. And it's been used in tandem with value optimization as a strong recipe for identifying who are the most valuable people to their business and people that may have more mid-funnel actions taking place that may turn into longer-term value people over a 1 month, 2 month, or 3 month period. For example, they might find people that are likely to spend within a 7-day window, and then people that are likely to take specific actions in-app on a 7-day window as well. And those people that are leveling up in a game may end up being spenders in the long run. So it's a good 1-2 punch.
Can you explain the windows again?
Yeah, right now, value optimization and app event optimization allow you to optimize for 2 specific attribution windows, 1-day click-through and 7-day click-through. And this really maps to how do you think about your measurement model within your business. Some think that they have most of their conversions that they care about happen within a 1-day window.
Okay.
Well, some businesses know that it takes a little bit for people to purchase or add to cart. And so this is a lever that businesses can use to get the delivery that they truly care about.
And I'd say like the fact that we offer these longer conversion windows for delivery has been we rolled them out probably in the past couple of years. It's been big for gaming advertisers. I'd say it's been big for the financial services segment as well. A lot of our financial technology clients have really been able to benefit from us extending. So historically, before we approached this, we were kind of only considering a 1-day post-click window of conversions in all of our optimization models. It's just a little bit of a historical legacy thing, I think. We come from a place where there's been search, for example, is based on CPC buying. So there's just a lot of historical things within, I think, online advertising generally, where we're used to thinking about what happens right after a click. Yeah. We know on Facebook, and we know from many different industries, not everything important happens right after the click. So going back to the financial tech example, when we rolled out a 7-day post-click window for delivery, it aligned well with a lot of customers in that segment, just because that if someone's signing up for a new insurance plan or a new credit card, something like high consideration, like so many of these things in that segment entail, then we're really best served by looking at a longer window post-click or post-view of when conversions happen. We thereby have more conversions to actually feed into our conversion optimization models, and that goes back to the concept of better learning and better optimization over time.
Okay, you mentioned CPC, cost per click, optimizing for clicks. How important is it to optimize for clicks, and how effective is that strategy?
Man, I guess it's quite a common question that we receive. At the inception of our self-serve ads buying platform at Facebook, about 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, CPM and CPC buying were basically the only options, and those mirrored what was available broadly in digital advertising at the time. But over the past 10 years, first of all, we believe that advertisers should focus on buying and optimizing for outcomes and measuring real business outcomes. Over the past 10 years, we've just continually focused on expanding our ability to allow advertisers to automatically optimize on our system for those outcomes that truly matter. So like, what do your CFOs care about, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
We had app installs in, I think, 2012 or so, and then we rolled out conversion optimization, continued to improve that. We rolled out value optimization last year.
Yep.
App event optimization, I think.
2016, I
Yeah,
believe.
past
Yeah.
year or two also. And we're continuing to kind of build on this continuum. LTV, Jose brought up, we're exploring ways we can offer advertisers to automatically optimize for that. So this growing portfolio of ways to automatically optimize for the things that matter. At this point, if you're still optimizing for clicks, well, I essentially don't see a reason to still optimize for clicks. There's some advertisers who, it's hard to actually, track or optimize for that thing that truly matters. But like at the very least, we rolled out, as an alternative for optimizing for clicks, we rolled out last year, or potentially it was early this year, an option to optimize for landing page views. And what that means is that for any advertiser who does have the pixel installed on their site, at least optimizing, instead of for the ad click on Facebook, to optimize for that point where someone arrives on your landing page and is eligible to start interacting with your page. We've seen there that optimizing for landing page views does a better job of driving the downstream events that advertisers care about than optimizing for clicks does.
Okay.
The only thing I'd say is for businesses that are using optimization for link clicks as a means to get it some other objective, we feel like we have a great set of options between conversion optimization, app event optimization, value, to help meet those needs. But we're still exploring, and we want to understand what ultimate objective is not being met, and see how we can get it into our system.
So you guys are sharing some excellent best practices, but a lot of questions about scale is coming in. So what I mean by scale is, oftentimes an advertiser creates a really amazing creative, but then at some point that creative experiences creative fatigue. What are some moves that the advertiser can make in order to mitigate the negative impact of creative fatigue?
From my point of view, I think creative fatigue is kind of inevitable, because especially if your ads is reaching a limited group of audiences, and then after the creative has been reaching maybe 60-70% of the audience, and then the rest, our system think there isn't going to be high response rate anyways, then basically that probably means that creative is not good enough or is not relevant enough to that audience that you are trying to reach. Then maybe a good way to start the campaign is to add as many creative as possible, just so that if there are a few creative that are not so relevant, you would probably still have a few creative that are more relevant to the audiences. And thus our optimization will gradually put more weights on those better performing creatives to reach those audiences.
Yeah, to generalize this a little bit, beyond understanding how I can put new creative in the system, you also have to understand what is my true intended audience. Does that potentially need to be expanded? And what is my true business objective? Am I comfortable relaxing my CPA or ROAS limits a little bit? Will that help improve the delivery of my ad? And those three parameters between the creative, the business objective, and the audience are worth exploring to figure out how to really get your ads to continue to deliver against what you really care about.
Is the best creative always the best creative for a broad audience? So there's a lot of creative strategies that, with a small audience, we have a creative that's performing really well.
Yeah.
But you use that same creative on a broad audience, and then all of a sudden performance might be a little different. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I think it's quite relevant to what Jose just mentioned, that if the small audience that is really specific or unique, then there would be a gap between the broader audience versus the small audience. Whereas if you're actually testing in a smaller market, like I started with testing in New York and San Francisco, and I see that the creative is performing well, and I want to scale it across the US, there might be still a continuation of the performance. So it really depends on the business and the goal.
Okay, so in that situation, it probably makes sense to have a broad, targeted creative,
Yeah.
right? Versus using the creative that's more regionally focused.
Yeah.
What you could do if you wanted to explore how well niche creative resonates with niche audiences while still making sure that the system has sort of enough data to be optimizing effectively is you could consider setting up different ad sets targeting different audiences with ads, different creative inside the ads targeting those audiences, and then set up campaign budget optimization with all of those separate ad set combinations underneath to actually make sure budget is moving fluidly to the best performing ad sets, and that could be kind of a way to get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. This gets into how you define an audience. So if you're trying to promote different food items, I'm a Texan, I'd certainly be more engaging with a burrito ad than someone in Philadelphia who might want a cheesesteak. And so a good way of structuring that might be to do, as Amy said, and make ad sets by state and put in creative that you think are going to be very specific to that audience and then iterate from there.
Okay. Speak about targeting. So let's just say you have multiple ad sets, but they're all targeting the same exact targeted audience. How can we get around that? Like, what happens in the auction when you have the same creative, multiple ad sets targeting the same exact audience? Like, how does that dynamic play out?
I can speak to that. So a lot of advertisers actually also come to our team and ask if they should create more ad set with similar content, putting to different ad set versus lumping them together. So I guess at the general level, the best practice is always to try to put them together so that our system could stand the highest chance of learning, because Facebook's ads learning is at ad ID level. So when you put the same ad into different ad IDs, that splits the traffic into different ad ID and also split the learning, which means that the learning will be less efficient. And at the back end, what we're doing is we do not want advertisers to internally compete against itself by having multiple ads from the same account. So we will always pick the ad ID at the creative that has the highest estimated response rate or total bid that we estimated and enter the auction with other advertisers. So what that means is if you have multiple creatives, we will still just pick one from the same account. Then you'd rather put them all together so that the learning could be aggregated together and the ad ID level learning could pick up faster. Yeah, as Amy said just now, we roughly need about 50 conversions per ad set before we reach a stable delivery. So so if you put all the budget from split ad set into one ad set, then probably our ad could achieve that 50 conversion faster, and thus the model will be calibrated faster.
With that said, would you still say it makes sense to split out your higher LTV audiences? So audiences that may lead to like 3x or 4x to your business. Should we have separate ad sets for those specific audiences?
I guess what that case means is sometimes the higher value user are more heavily competed on. So like if I'm a high value e-commerce shopper, probably I would be targeted by Amazon and also other e-commerce competitors. So I would require a higher bid to win an auction on me. So if that's the case, yes, you might create a separate ad set targeting on higher value, mid value, low value user and bid differently. So if you think that user is higher value, you might want to bid higher, but not for the lower value user. Yeah,
Okay,
in
so-
that case,
So if the ad sets have different values to the advertiser,
Yeah.
right, then
Yeah.
it's okay,
yeah,
right? Then it makes sense to break them apart.
right.
Is there ever a situation where you should duplicate an existing ad set or an existing campaign in hopes of getting more delivery? Or should you just use the campaign that's already performing well for you and extend the date out?
Yeah, I'd say if I've heard this question before too, sort of like, okay, delivery on my existing ad set slowed down. I don't know why. Like, can I just copy it and like launch a new one and see what happens? every time you create a new ad set, it is going to go into learning phase again, essentially, looking for more data. So there is, if delivery suddenly was had slowed on your existing ad set, actually, yeah, maybe creating a new ad set could get more delivery. I'd caution letting multiple ad sets, identical ad sets targeting the same audience, continue to run at the same time. Because back to what Jingchen said, it was a little bit of this notion of then you will have this situation where you've got multiple ad sets with sort of competing and overlapping audiences. If learning does occur on both, if delivery does happen on both ad sets simultaneously, you're breaking apart essentially the learning efficiency. So maybe if you started a new ad set, pause the old one down and try and consolidate the live ad sets to one audience as much as possible.
The one time I would recommend duplication is if you're trying to test out different strategies and you want to try to keep as many variables the same within a couple of ads and only toggle one thing that's important to you. Yeah. Like maybe you want to try out conversions versus value. You can take an already existing conversion optimized ad, duplicate it, and then just only modify the optimization goal. Otherwise, I gotta agree, the best way to have your ads deliver the best performance is to allow us to optimize, and sometimes things like duplication can cause too much competition in the auction.
Okay, and we haven't really touched on placement optimization too much. What are your thoughts about placement optimization? Does it work for everybody? What are some constraints? What are some trade-offs?
I guess I'll talk about what placement optimization is in the cases where we actually do recommend it. So we obviously have a lot of places across the Facebook family of apps and services where your ad can show up. So Facebook feed, Instagram feed, stories, audience network, kind of expanding on this kind of realm of placements that your ad could potentially show up in. And we recommend opting into more placements when, assuming you're optimizing for an event you actually care about. So if you care about purchases, you've set your ad to optimize for purchases. We recommend opting into more placements because ultimately it just means more opportunities to find those outcomes or show ads to people who are likely to lead to your desired outcome wherever they are. So if they log into Facebook, if they're scrolling through Instagram, we have that opportunity to get in front of that person, which is what you want. It's kind of like casting this wide net. Where placement optimization might not be as great of an idea is if you are optimizing for something that's actually a proxy, and it's kind of further away from your desired business outcome. So an example here is if you're optimizing for clicks. We've found, for example, that it's really easy to find clicks on certain placements. For example, it might be easier to find clicks on some audience network properties. Yeah. But not all of those clicks are equally likely across placements to actually lead to the outcome that you're looking for as an advertiser. So two recommendations. One is make sure you're actually optimizing for an outcome that's important to you, that's important to your business. But in those, and if you're doing that, then opt into more placements. If you are optimizing for more of a proxy event, you can kind of be a little more, I guess, thoughtful in how much you actually expand the placements you show on.
What if I change my optimization from purchases to add to cart, right, as an example? Is that going to reset the learning process?
That'll definitely reset the learning phase. It could be a good move if, as Amy had shared earlier, you're not seeing a great amount of traffic because there's not a lot of just organic behavior towards purchasing. It may be a good move to move it to add to cart if as a way of seeing if you can have this ad set learn at a quicker rate. But yes, it will go into learning phase, so it's something you really want to be considerate about.
Okay, and speaking about the learning phase, what's better? Do I start off with a really large ad set budget and then slowly come back in, or do I do the opposite, start off with a really small budget and slowly expand that budget?
That's a great question. There's some trade-offs to keep in mind. I wouldn't say there's a really great answer here, but some trade-offs to keep in mind are you want enough budget to allow us to learn effectively for you, but at the same time, you want a testing strategy. You want to test which kind of audiences and which kind of strategies work best for you. So you may be testing out different audiences as well if you're not using campaign budget optimization. So the right balance is to give it enough budget to succeed for that given audience.
So sticking with the learning phase, if you guys don't mind, I just got a question in here that's actually a really good one. What if I change something what if I change the creative, or I make a really small change to the copy of a creative? Does that reset the learning phase?
Any change to creative will reset learning phase for the ad set. Okay. So it's important to keep in mind how much you value the making that change, and whether or not you actually want to place that updated creative into a new ad set, just to make sure it doesn't interfere with any really strong performers. If that's a trade-off you're willing to make in the short to medium term, it may be worth updating those creatives to see if it gets you better global performance across your ad set.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, like some, in addition to creative changes, some other kind of significant changes that will restart the learning phase are things like a change to the optimization goal. So changing from, purchase to add to cart, or changing from conversions to clicks for the optimization goal. Changing the target audience will reset the learning phase. And certain, I think Jingsheng mentioned this, like bid or budget changes of larger magnitudes could also reset the learning phase.
Okay. All right.
But if you are using target bid, as Amy suggested, and increasing the budget, then there's likely a less dramatic change in the learning, just because it's probabilistic pacing, so we are reaching approximately the same audiences, even if there's an increase in budget.
Can you explain probabilistic pacing real quick for our audience?
Yeah, so when you are using target cost or target bid, we will not try to find the cheapest audiences as we would do if you are using auto bid, where internally we're using a pacing multiplier, that if we think you are targeting 1 million user but with only $100 budget, then we will find you the cheapest one with just $100 budget. We don't necessarily have to reach the more expensive ones. Whereas if you are not using auto bid, by having a target bid, like, okay, I have $100 budget, but then per cost, I will still be willing to reach up to $10. Then this time, our system will not discriminate against those with lower cost or higher cost. Anyone that is below $10, we will give them a chance to show your ad to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'd say as we gradually roll out target cost, what was previously known as auto bid or automatic bidding is now sort of rebranded in this revamped bidding interface as lowest cost, the lowest cost bid strategy. So that old version of automatic bidding is still there. It just is called lowest cost now.
I see.
FYI.
Yeah. What if I'm trying to spend? Like, that's my number one goal. I just want to spend on the platform, but for some reason, my ad sets continue to underspend. Any advice that you can give to advertisers in that type of situation?
I think the best way to figure out how best to get your ads to scale is really to understand, is this budget suitable for this ad set? Can I afford to extend it out and potentially see what kind of scale I get as I increase my budget? The alternative approach is to see if I'm bidding for the right objective or if I'm also targeting towards the right audience. Those are things I would think about as I'm trying to identify how best to scale my ad if I'm running into a bit of if I'm not exactly achieving the scale I'd want to.
Okay.
I'd say too, like oftentimes when, for direct response advertisers, they actually run into delivery issues because a bid that they've manually set might not be high enough. And so for those cases where kind of spending in full is the priority rather than any sort of keeping CPAs under some cost threshold is important. If the goal is just to kind of make sure the budget is used, automatic bidding, or now known as lowest cost bidding, that actually, when that's selected, we're actually going to adjust the bid on the back end as high as necessary to actually make sure that you're winning enough auctions to spend the budget.
So what if you're using lowest cost bidding or lowest cost bidding with a really high bid cap, but your budget is not really spending?
Yeah, then it might be worth looking at that optimization goal to make sure it's actually, are we capturing the 50 conversions at the ad
Yeah.
set level? If not, maybe that conversion event is too rare to actually properly optimize for,
Makes sense.
thus affecting
Yeah,
deliveries.
so adding more budget in that situation is not necessarily going to improve delivery.
Right, so you actually could then consider maybe optimizing for a higher funnel event that happens more frequently to actually kind of give some juice to the optimization system.
And of course, thinking about, is the creative I'm trying to deliver against really relevant to that audience? It's always worth understanding what is going to get my ideal customer engaged and ready to come onto my website and engage. So that's also an important consideration.
So I typically like videos, right? But there's oftentimes a question, what's better, static images versus video? How do you position that to advertisers?
Yeah, so our goal with Facebook advertising is to drive the most relevant ads that we can. And the advent of video has been really exciting to watch. I think, as a Netflix subscriber, I know that it's been the biggest place where my time spent has really gone. And to that end, we see that video has been an effective way for content creators to really tell their message. And so increasingly, people may see more video ads on Facebook, but that it won't be wholly deterministic. We don't necessarily think that the world will go completely towards video, because static is still a really effective way to tell your story as a business, especially when combined with formats like Canvas and Carousel. It's really engaging to see these different products or tell this immersive story on Canvas. And so what we will ultimately determine which ads a person sees is what are they most likely to engage with, and how does this business value them. And so between those two different parameters, we're going to figure out how to best serve people valuable experiences, and video is certainly going to be a big part of that in the future. The other note there is that we do have services that are pretty much video dedicated, like Facebook Watch, and that means that there's going to be just a larger supply of video ads available. So that'll be another consideration as businesses think about what is the ad that it's going to be most relevant to my audience.
And ultimately, you always want to test that, right? Because
Absolutely,
different videos might be a little bit more engaging for different demographics. right?
Absolutely. Testing is an important part of Facebook advertising and being successful on our platform. Yeah.
Okay, so we're almost at time, so I want to ask each one of you guys one last question. So if you had to think about a nugget that you wanted to leave the audience, one thing that you wanted to focus on and you wanted them to remember, what would it be? Jose, let's start with you.
Please think about value optimization and value-based lookalikes as you understand how to get the most performance out of Facebook ads. We're really excited about what we can do. And otherwise, if you're not thinking about one of those two products, please leverage one of the app event optimization or conversion optimization products that we do have available to help us meet your true business objective.
From auction point of view, Facebook always prioritizing making meaningful connection between users and ads. So if there's a strategy that you should stick to, you should stick to making your ads more relevant to your users before all the other tactics of ad settings. Yeah.
So I think I talked a little bit earlier about sort of casting a wide net when you approach your Facebook campaigns, and I had this funny, I find it funny, analogy of if you were a fisherman and you were trying to support your family by catching fish, you could either do your job with one of those small nets that you see at the pet store where you just get one fish at a time kind of thing, or you could come in with those industrial type trawlers, which, environmental considerations aside, they're really good at catching fish. That kind of applies to Facebook campaigns, where you could either go after one placement at a time or one niche audience at a time and kind of keep your budget constrained to these small setups, or you could look at everything holistically and opt into more placements. Make sure you're targeting flexible audiences of flexible size, making sure you're using things like campaign budget optimization to make sure your spend isn't locked into individual ad sets. Ultimately, casting a wider net with those types of tactics can help you capture more opportunities over time.
Okay. So to wrap it up, I just want to thank you, Amy, JX, Jose. You guys were wonderful. We got through a ton of questions. For the users out there, please like the video if you want to see more videos like this in the future. And I'll see you guys on Facebook Auction Live, episode 7. I'll talk to you guys soon.